Hi everyone, myself Dr. M. Lakshmi Prasad, working as an associate professor in the Department of Data Science in Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, Hyderabad. So in this video, I'm going to discuss about what are the various questions that may come in presenting the data. So very first question is that explain about the clarity principle. So what is the clarity principle? So what is the thing we have to be followed while presenting the data? So clarity is going to be defined as the clearness as to perception or understanding, freedom from indistinctness or ambiguity. So it is the latter part that really sticks out to us as a virtue of presentation design, and understand the message you wish to impart and provide it in a clear and concise manner. So the key aspect of any data representation should be clarity, and it is also to be related to two principles like precision and efficiency. Right. So the clarity is the thing where we have to maintain this while presenting the data. So clarity means that clearness as to perception or understanding. So that we have to get freedom from the indistinctness or ambiguity. So it is one of the key aspect of data presentation, and the clarity principle able to follow two other principles. So very first thing is that precision, and second thing is that efficiency. So setting the context for the clarity in the presentation of data. So for that, every element in presentation should lead the audience to make the big decision. So what is the element you are presenting in the presentation? So that lead to the audience to make the big presentation. And here is the virtual representation of the way of various elements in presentation lead to the big decision. Okay. So the virtual representation of the data is the way of various elements in the presentation that may lead to the big decision. So here the big decision can be classified into two types normally, like small decision, right? And further this small decisions is going to be further divided into three more that should be different things what we call as assertions. So by combining all these things, what we can do, we can able to make the big decision. So whatever the presentation we are having, so that presentation will be successful whenever we are going to make the path towards the big decision as smooth and as clear as possible for your audience. And for this, what you have to do, you have to need to make the inference from your slides very obvious. So let's see one of the example of that. Suppose if I'm going to represent the presentation in this form, like so, it should be a bar chart. So I'm going to monthly presents of sales in monthly wise. I want to represent it for that. So January, these are the sales, and February, these are the sales what I identify, and March. Like this I have presented the data, but in this one, so what you have to do, so by seeing this bar again you have to check mapping should be take it out whether what is the value that is mapping, and suppose what is the exact value I don't know what it is, so again I have to map with this. So in order to represent like this, so what is underway of representing means, suppose if I'm going to represent the value here itself, then it should be very precise way of representation, so that we can able to easily identify it. Otherwise the audience is able to observe very grasply or very fastly what this value is. So like this, that kind of presentation is need to be maintained, right? So what is that presentation we're making, so that should be leads to the big decision as clearly and as smooth as possible for the audience. So though the chart gives the right information, so the inference from the slide is not ambiguous, not obvious. And whenever there is no clarity in the presentation of data, so the different people in the audience start looking at the different parts of chart and raise the questions, right? So this kind of questions and this type of ambiguity may arise if the content of the presentation is not good, and the discussions is off on a tangent, and then presenter loses the control of the situation as well. So if this kind of presentation, if I am going to present in front of the audience, so what will happen is that, so the audience is unable to get the data, and then the presenter also may lose the control by understanding the audio. The customer is unable to understand what he is telling, and then all. So next, consider this alternative representation of the data in the graph. Like suppose this slide title is clearly spells out the message of the slide. So whatever the title I'm giving, so that should be clearly specified out. So this one have to be represent what is this meant for. And a specific portion of the chart which proves the assertion is clearly highlighted using a green dotted arrow. And then the audience able to get the message in seconds and moves towards the dictation. So by seeing this graph, suppose if I'm going to put a dotted arrow like this, so what will happen is that the number of sales by every month increasing, so that in single shot the audience can able to understand that the sales are increasing. So if I'm unable to represent this type of representation presenting the data, it may lead to some confusion. So whether this sales are increasing or sales are decreasing is something confusion may arise among this audience also. Then how we are going to bring the clarity in the presentation of the data. So the first way is to contrast to highlight the information is the first thing, and then you can able to use the different color to bring the attention to the important of our slide, or I'm going to make the highlight the point with the red line, or to use any method that the audience notice the information you want them to register in their mind. Okay, so suppose if I want to make some highlight the steps or highlight the content, so that we are I can able to do that with the different color, or to make that highlighting the point with red line, or can able to use some other different method, so that we can able to make some attention to the audience. So this is the important of this kind of application like this. Suppose see the example here. Steps. Suppose we're having the steps like. Step 1, step 2, step 4 and 5. So this is the steps you have to follow here. This is the one of the examples. Suppose in this presentation I want to show this uh, this step is very important when compared to the other three steps like first, second, third and fourth. And so what I have to do is I have to make use of some other different color and different notation. I have to make use of this like this, so that what will happen here is they should be very important, so that the audience can able to understand that. So let's see we can how we're going to enhance the clarity of the data presentation for that. So in the following slide, the presenter want to showcase their new system that has been saved cost across all the units, so that the right data to show the cost information or cost comparison between the previous years and the current years I want to show. Right? So previous years means when the system was not available, and current year means with the new system. So like that kind of comparison, if I want to show it, then I have to simultaneously have to keep the slides slide by slide, so that you can able to make the comparison very clearly, right? Suppose uh, suppose these are the initial previous one. Now how can able to make the comparison between the last year cost and then this year cost I want to make. So by seeing this I can able to understand, we can able to make the comparison between the previous year and current year. So how are we going to compare? So number of in January, how many number of sales, and similarly how many number of sales. By seeing this graph I can able to understood that. So though the two slides are able to provide the required data, the inference is not that much obvious. So here there should be a better alternative have to be choose. So this type of leading comparison make something difficulty for the audience to make a comparison. So for that, what I have to do instead of representing this two separate bar chart for two separate years, so one of the best solution is that within a single chart that should be multiple bar chart is the solution where can able to make the comparisons between them. Suppose dark green are able to represent the last year cost, and light green is going to represent the current year cost. Okay. So what will happen here is, so by seeing this simultaneous number of sales in January, I can able to make it comparison very quickly here. Similarly, in January, February, March, April, like this, May. So I can, by seeing this, so the number of sales, last year sales are more when compared to the current year sales. Similarly, what here is in February also the current last year sales are more and current year sales are less. Like this, I can able to make the quick comparison among these uh, two applications. Like, so the bar charts of the previous slides are going to be combined to help the audience, so that the audience can able to read the information very easily, and this will be definitely improves the clarity of information that is provided. So, but inference is not made obviously enough here. So for that, what is the better alternative of presenting the graph with the clarity is that, so this the graph where you can able to write a 3D line graph is the best one according to that also. So the information whatever is there is present provided, that should be clearly understandable form, and exact amount is mentioned on the slide is not very obvious way. So here the cost should be able to take and the y-axis, and then the number of units that is going to be sold in last year is this one, and current year is this one. So this is the uh, savings I can able to represent by seeing that graph. And next one is that explain about the efficiency principle. So this is also very important by presenting the data. So for that, what you have to be considered while presenting the data in order to make that presentation should be very effective. So for that, so make sure that whatever the data are presenting that can be seen, and the focus on the point of the data what you are illustrating, and share one and only one major point from each chart, and then label the chart components clearly, and then visually highlight the aha zone, what we call it, and write a slide title that reinforces the data point. So, and then present to our audience, not the data. So in order to make the presentation should be very effective, so for that what we have to do is we have to follow some of the things. So whatever the data we are taking, that should be presented very clearly, and then focus on the points what are what the data is going to be illustrated, and share one and only the major point of each chart, and label chart components clearly. Visualize the highlight or aha zones, write the slide title that reinforces the data point, and present the audience, not the. And next one, how to make a good presentation is also be to be effective for that. So what you have to do is create an easy to follow structure, and then when it comes to what you want to say, so break it down into three simple sections. So like introduction, body, and conclusion, like that. Similarly, so limit the amount of copy of each slide, and be how with the design details, and then polish the several times. So these are the things you have to be considered for making the presentation to be good. And next one is that explain different types of key principles that should be followed to make the effective data visualization. So here we're having 7 key principles that should be make the effective data visualization, effective data presentation. So for that, some of them will be determine the best visual. So if you're going to consider an application, there may be of different ways of visualizing the data. So for that, what you have to do is you have to first determine what is the best visual of the data, and then balance the design. So balance the design have to be also be considered, and the focus on the key areas. So whenever the presenter is going to be present the data, so finally focus on the key areas only, and make the data should be simple one, and then incorporate interactivity and use patterns. So by considering all these principles, so what will happen here is the data visualization what should be we're presenting, that should be very effective, right? So let's see one by one in detail about determine the best visual. So for that, to begin with, it is imperative to understand the volume of data in hand, and then you may also identify the aspect that you wish to visualize among with the information that what you wish to convey. And after this also you may select the best suited and simple visual format for the target audience, right? So determine the best visual. So for that what we have to do is, so in order to begin this we have to be very imperative to understand the volume of data in hand, and then we should also identify the aspect that we want to wish to visualize, the information to wish to convey. And after this also we can able to may select the best suited and simple visual format for our target audience. And second one is that balance the design for that. So this should be able to reverse the different distributed visual elements across the plot, such as texture and then color, shape and negative space. So you may also select the visual to be symmetrical, asymmetrical or radial, and figure out the balance of the element that work best for visualizing our data. So okay, the balancing the design, so this should be refers to actually the distribution of different elements that is going to be presented in the presentation, like textures and then colors, shapes, and negative spaces and etc. So whatever the presentation one can, that is visuals, so that should be either in the form of symmetrical one or asymmetrical one or radial. Okay, for using analyzing the data. Focus on the key areas and ensure that the key areas are well highlighted, and then you may also place the key points towards the top left corner, as user attention is generally drawn towards that quadrant, right? So what is this focus on the key areas all the time? So what are the key areas are there? You present you make try to highlight it so that the users can able to understand the key areas of the presentation, and you may also place some of the key points that may relate uh, at the content at the top left corner, so that there should be clear attention should be drawn from towards that quadrant. And next one is that keep it simple. So for this ensure this one able to ensure their visuals and simple, that should be simple one and easy to understand, and adding the unwanted information also may lead to confusion, so which defeats the purpose of data visualization. And keep in mind that ultimate goal of data visualization should be simplicity only, and you may also build additional visuals, so if you want to wish convey to the multifaceted story. So, what is the data we're presenting? That should be very simple and easily understandable. Then, understand adding unwanted information may also lead to the confusion, actually, which is going to be defeat the purpose of the data visualization. And keep in mind that all the time, whatever that the goal of data visualization should be simplicity, and you may also build additional visuals if you want to wish convey a multifaceted story. And next one is that incorporate interactivity. So in order to attain this, so what we have to do is we may deploy some data visuals tools that infuse interactivity into your graphs or charts. And however, so in order to ensure this, that may need not confuse the target audience, since the main purpose is to clarify their doubts and queries. So interactivity should be maintained. So in order to make the presentation should be very simple. So for that, what we have to do is we have to deploy some of the data visual tools uh, which infuse the interactivity in the graphs or maybe in the charts. Okay, so in so by make use of this, what will happen is the target audience should able to clarify the doubts or query what they are getting. And use patterns. So is the another thing. So you may also display some similar types of informations like with the help of the patterns, and may also establish a pattern by using similar chart types or colors or any other element. Okay, so using patterns. So in order to make the presentation should be beautiful, so we'll have to make use of some of the patterns which may be able to display some similar types of information like one with the help of patterns, and may also establish a pattern by using a similar chart types, colors, and then any other element. Okay, so these are the some of the pattern you can able to type, like similar chart types, like where you can able to use this types or colors I can able to use or some other elements. And next one is that compared experts. So while showing the compare experts in the presenting the data, so you have to display side by side comparison is bursts in order to represent uh, the data should be easier, and then should also be understood by the viewers very clearly. So the comparison aspects. So what is the comparing you have to do, right? So the comparison is going to be placed side by side, so that what will happen is the comparison looks good, and then it should also understood very easily by the audience, and then data should also be very clear. So you may able to align the data either in the form of horizontally or in the form of vertically, so that it can be compared accurately. Okay, so what is this? So for that comparison is there. So for that comparison, so have to be placed side by side, either in the form of horizontally or in the form of vertically. How to place the comparison, so that the comparison may leads the easy understanding by the audience. And next one is that explain about the precision principle. So for that, so the precision also very important for presenting the data. So for that, what how to do is we have to know what is the precision of the data. So the precision is the one how close measured values are to each other. Basically, how many decimal values are at the end of the given experiments. So next, the precision doesn't matter, and accuracy is how close the measured value is to the true value. And accuracy measures too, but it is the best when measurements are both precise and accurate. So the precise precision is the one where we can able to present the data. So the precision means how close the measured values are to each other, right? So basically, how many decimal places are going to be there at the end of the given experiment. So the precision doesn't matter, but accuracy is the thing where how close to measure values to the true value is the thing. So accuracy matters too, but it is best when the measurements are both precise and accurate. And next one is that, so what are the characteristics of this precision? So for the characteristics, the precision is the degree of exactness for which the instrument is going to be designed. And the precision is composed of two characteristics. The first thing is that conformity, and then second one is that significant figures. So the more significant figures and estimated precision is more, right? So the precision is the one where the degree of exactness for which the instrument is going to be designed, and precision is going to be composed of two characteristics. The first thing is the conformity, and second one is the significant figures. So the more significant figures and estimated precision is more here. And then, so the precision is the thing where which is able to reflect the depth of knowledge encoded by the data normally. So the precision comes in many forms such as resolution of images, audio, video, and the degree of disaggregation of statistics. So the accuracy is the likelihood that the data reflect the truth, and scanned image of the government is going to be recorded 100% accurate with the some sense. So this is one of the examples. So precision means the depth of knowledge that is going to be encoded by the data. So the precision able to comes in many forms like graphs and then audio, video, right? So everything should be able to make this thing very precise one. And the accuracy is the thing which should every likelihood that the data reflects on the truth, and the scanned image of the government record should be the 100% accurate in some sense. So some of the examples, so what is the example of data precision will be here is, so the precision is the one how close the two or more experiments are to each other, right? So the precision is the one how close the two or more experiments should be each other. So if you consistently measure your height with the add stick, then your measurements should be precise. So how do you find the precision of the data here? So for that, to calculate the precision, so using a range of values, start by sorting the data in numerical order, and then you can able to determine the highest and lowest measured values. So in order to calculate the precision using a range of values, then what you have to do is, so start by sorting the data in numerical order so that you can able to determine the highest and lowest measured values. And next one is that subtract the lowest measured value from the highest measured value and then report that answer as the precision, right? So the precision of the data is the thing where we can able to do. So for how we're going to find that means that we can able to determine the highest and lowest measured values and then report the answer to that as the precision. So what kind of measures have to be taken for the precision? So for that, the precision of information means refers to the spread of measured values. So one of the way of analyzing the precision of the measurements would be determining the range difference between the lowest value and higher measured value. So example in that case, so the lowest is 10.9 inches and highest is 11.2 inches, like this. So these are some of the measures what we are going to be imposed for the measure. That should be, so the precision of the measurement will be able to reflect the spread of the measured values. So one way to analyze precision is that to determine the range or difference, or you can able to see the comparison between the lowest measured value and the highest measured value. And what is the difference between the accuracy and precision? This is the question that may come in it. Sometimes it may leads to confusion here. So for that, what you have to do is, so the accuracy is the thing which is the degree of closeness to a true value should be treated as accuracy, and precision should be the degree to which instrument or process will repeat the same value, right? So the precision is the degree which an instrument or process will repeat the same value. In other words, so the accuracy is the degree of veracity, while the precision is the degree of reproducibility, right? So these are the things that make confusion. That is that accuracy and precision. So precision is the sense the degree to which an instrument or process will repeat the same value. So I'm doing some experiments, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for this first experiment, I got the value 10.9 and 11.9, 12.9, 13.9. Suppose if I'm doing the same thing, then if I'm going to get the same values again, then that should be, we can able to consider it as precision. Accuracy in the sense, suppose if I'm going to conduct some other instrument, suppose if I'm going to get 10 and then 11.5, 12.10 and then 30, then it can be treated as the accuracy. So the data how much accurate to the current one, and then here it should be precise. So precise means getting the same values, right? So the accuracy is the degree of veracity and the precision is the degree of reproducibility. So normally what kind of formula you're going to prefer for precision should be is, so the precision should be calculated as true positive. It should be divided by true positive and false positives. That should be equal to, if I'm going to take the example, so precision is equal to true positive 90, 90 plus 30. That should be, what will happen here is 90 by 120. So what is accuracy and precision with the examples that may also come. So for that, accuracy is the thing where how close the value to the true value. So example, how close an arrow gets the bull eye center. is the thing, and precision means how repeatedly the measurement is. So did you got the reference right? So the accuracy is the thing, how close an arrow gets to the bull eye center. That is the accuracy. Precision means how many number of times the measurement is going to be repeated. So example, how close the second arrow is close to the first one. That should be the question. So next one, what are the precision measurement tools you have to be constant? So as the name suggests that the precision measurement instruments or the tools or devices that are going to be used directly for measuring the physical quantities or obtaining the measurements indirectly by making the calculations on the real world objects in such a way manner that one can get the precise values, right? So as the name suggests, the precision measurements instruments are going the tools or it may be a devices used for directly measuring the quantities or going to obtain the measurements indirectly by making the conclusion on real world objects in such a manner that can one get the precise values. So next one, what are the characteristics of the precision? So the precision, just now what I said, should be a degree of exactness for which the instrument is going to be designed, and then the characteristics of this precision will be conformity and then significant figures. Mostly the significant figures and estimated precision is more. And next then, what is the data precision healthcare? Let me define that. So data precision means the degree to which the measures support the purpose or closeness of one or two measures to each other. That should be data precision if I'm going to consider the healthcare another application. And data relevance is that the extent to which the healthcare related data are going to be useful for the purpose which they are collected. That should be data relevance. So the extent to which the healthcare related data are going to be useful for the purposes for which they were collected, that should be data relevance. And data precision is that which can able to support the purpose and closeness of two or more measures.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.